All right, today we're diving into some really fascinating work by Dr. KANBİR. We're going to explore the deep and honestly pretty surprising connections between economics and ecology. It turns out there might be a shared blueprint that runs both of these worlds, even though they seem completely separate.
So let me just ask you this. What on earth does a bustling marketplace, like Wall Street, have in common with a wild ecosystem like the Amazon rainforest? You might think, well, they both use resources, and you'd be right, but the connection goes so much deeper than that, and it all starts with one single, ancient word.
And that word is oikos. It's ancient Greek for household or home. And get this, ecology, the study of our planetary home, and economics, the management of our human home, they both come from the exact same root. So right at their very core, they're both sciences about how to manage a complex system, a complex home.
Now, this shared origin isn't just a fun little piece of trivia. It points to a much, much bigger idea, something Dr. KANBİR calls the natural order. You can think of it like an unseen operating system that's running in the background of both of these complex households.
So what exactly is this natural order? Well, it's a type of spontaneous order. This is key. It's not something that was designed by a committee or a government or some brilliant CEO. Nope, it just emerges. It bubbles up from the countless independent actions of every individual, all just trying to do their own thing. It's order from the bottom up, not the top down.
And you've almost certainly heard of the guy who described this perfectly in economics, Adam Smith. This quote gets right to the heart of his idea of the invisible hand. He basically argued that when people just act in their own self-interest, they somehow, almost magically, end up helping out all of society, often more than if they were actively trying to. It's a foundational idea in market economics.
And here's where it gets really wild. Nature works the exact same way. I mean, think about a bee. Is it thinking, I must pollinate these flowers for the good of the ecosystem? Of course not. It's just looking for nectar. Or a wolf. It isn't trying to manage the deer population, it's just hungry. But all of those individual, self-interested actions are exactly what creates balance and keeps the whole ecosystem going. It's the same principle, just a different arena.
So just how deep do these parallels really go? Let's peel back the layers and look at the shared blueprints that make both of these systems work. And we'll start with their most important fundamental feature.
They are both self-regulating. In nature, you have these natural feedback loops. If the wolf population gets too big, their food source, the deer, starts to run out. Fewer deer means eventually fewer wolves. The system corrects itself. The market does the exact same thing, but it uses prices and competition. Prices go up and down, telling people where resources are needed most, all without a single person in charge.
Okay, so this self-regulation isn't just magic. It's built on 4 key principles that are practically identical in both worlds. First up, integrity, the idea that everything is connected and one small change can affect the whole system. Second, limitation. This one's easy. There isn't an infinite amount of stuff in the world. Resources are scarce. Third, diversity. In nature, lots of different species makes an ecosystem strong. In a market, lots of different companies competing makes the economy efficient. And finally, adaptation. Both systems have to change or they die, whether it's through evolution in nature or innovation in business.
Let's make that idea of integrity real for a second. Remember a few years back during the 2020 chip crisis? You couldn't get a new car, a video game console, anything. A single supply problem with one tiny component sent ripples across the entire globe, hitting 169 different industries. That was a painful but perfect reminder that the global economy is just like an ecosystem, one giant interconnected web.
And here's another unbreakable law that governs both of these worlds. There's no such thing as a free lunch, period. In nature, when a predator eats its prey, only a tiny fraction of the energy actually gets transferred, about 10%. The rest is the cost of the transaction. It's the same in economics. Every single thing we make or service we provide has a cost, because the resources aren't free. The bottom line is the same everywhere. Every single benefit has a price tag.
Okay, so if this blueprint works so well, what happens when we humans decide we know better? What's the cost of trying to interfere with this natural order? Well, let's look at a classic story from ecology that shows us exactly what happens.
Let's go to Yellowstone National Park in the 1930s. A decision was made to completely remove the wolves. The intention seemed good, protect livestock, but the result was a total disaster, a classic case of what we call backlash.
The deer population exploded without any predators. They ate everything in sight. The vegetation was devastated, which led to soil erosion, and other species started to disappear. The whole ecosystem was falling apart. Then, in 1995, they brought the wolves back. And guess what? The system began to heal itself. Balance was restored, the forests grew back, and biodiversity returned. It's just a powerful lesson in unintended consequences.
Now you can probably guess where this is going. The exact same thing happens in economics. When a central authority tries to intervene, say by forcing interest rates artificially low, it can create what feels like a massive boom, but it's a fake boom. Resources get poured into projects that aren't actually sustainable in the long run, and an unsustainable boom is always followed by an inevitable bust. Just like in Yellowstone, these economic crises are basically the system's painful way of trying to rebalance itself after we've messed with it.
So if meddling with the system can cause such a mess, how are we supposed to solve really big problems, like pollution? Do we just do nothing? Well, the source material here lays out two fundamentally different ways to think about finding that balance. The first path is the interventionist, or top-down approach. This is when the government steps in with a whole toolkit of solutions. We're talking about things like polluter pays taxes, where companies have to pay for the environmental damage they cause, or subsidies to help out green technology, or even creating special markets for carbon trading, and of course direct laws and regulations. These are all about active central management.
Then you have the second path, which relies on market-based or bottom-up solutions. The idea here is to give more power to individuals. This includes things like strengthening private property rights so people can protect their own land and water. It means letting the affected parties negotiate solutions directly. It also relies on public pressure. And then there's this really interesting idea called the environmental Kuznets curve, which suggests that as countries get richer, they naturally start investing more in protecting their environment, all on their own.
And that brings us to our final and pretty challenging thought. It comes from the biologist Richard Lewontin, and he reminds us that change is the only constant. Think about this. 99.99% of all species that have ever existed on this planet are now extinct. He argues that the goal can't be to just freeze the world as it is right now. So maybe the real challenge isn't just about preservation. Maybe it's about deeply understanding the natural, dynamic order of these incredibly complex systems, both in nature and in our economy. And with that understanding, how do we guide the change that's going to happen anyway to build a more sustainable future? That's the big question.